The word scarlet, it's like so beautiful.
Well, probably because people would have come out of the woodwork and been like, my great grandma was killed by Scarlet Fever, and that has affected our family for generations, you know?
Living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy.
Welcome to Living with Jonathan and Katy. Today we are living in a bunker on quarantine.
We are on quarantine. I'm Jonathan CERDA-ROWELL, and I've already eaten all of my toenails. Katy?
I'm Katy French, and I believe this is all a hoax.
You do believe this is all a hoax. Well, we were talking about this before, but I do want to bring this up. We do feel people are overreacting, but it's because the government underreacted.
Yeah.
People wouldn't be doing the shit that they're doing had the Trump administration taken the precautions that they should have taken before this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be in such like a crazy state.
Yeah. But it is, I mean, this is, we're living history.
Yeah.
We've never experienced anything like this.
Right.
Just
well,
nothing
you
to
and
do.
I lived through the Spanish flu.
Well, that's true.
But it didn't affect us because we were already elderly.
And I'm saying this earnestly. My great-great-great-grandfather died in the Spanish flu.
Oh, shit.
And I'm sorry about that dog. I'm sorry about that dog.
Wait, but he was young then when he died, right?
I think he was like in his 40s.
Yeah, because it attacked, that's scary. Do you know that it attacked the young?
It was...
It attacked exclusively the young.
It was a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and literally like and yes, everything's scary right now, but I'm like, we have testing, we have technology. Imagine being in like turn of the century when they don't have anything.
Yeah.
And they also just like barely learned about even like, you know, bacteria in like World War I.
Imagine being alive back then thinking that you were modern. It's very modern.
Well, if you're like a woman who cut her hair, it was
Right.
like, what a thoroughly modern Millie.
Right. Remember in Downton Abbey where like one of the daughters came in and she was wearing pants and everyone was like, guffaw! You know? It's like so stupid.
The stakes were very high back then.
Right.
But I do have, so shout out, rest in peace to my great-great-great-grandfather. And then also I have two relatives who were young ladies. They're like my ghost ancestors. So it was like early 1900s. We still own their dresses, and we have photographs of them in their dresses. They were basically like their senior high school kind of photographs. Mm-hmm. So they're like white lace, and they're like very ghost. Like imagine what an old ghost looks like. That's like full on what these dresses are. And they both died in a tuberculosis outbreak because they were both in dorms studying to be nurses, and you know it spreads through the dorms and things like that.
Yeah.
But you know what we all say? Die hot. And they did.
They did.
Because they were like 20 prime, you know. And they were so petite back then that I could only fit into the dresses when I was like prepubescent like body.
Yeah.
So when I was like 11, 12. So I did like to wear their ghostly gowns.
Oh God.
I'm going to put up a TBT.
Just eating Oreos.
Yeah. But they were like very thin and like truly they must have been such petite women because even that was like getting tight on me.
People were very small.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Now, you know, my abuelito, who just passed away a few years ago, my abuelito Roman, his mom, Jesusita, that's my mom's name, but that's who she's named after. His mom, Jesusita, died of yellow fever in Mexico when he was 12. Yeah. So every time I hear about that, I'm like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And this was in the 30s because my abuelito was born in like 1927. So maybe late 30s. This would be the late 30s when she passed away from yellow fever back in Mexico. And every time I hear that, I'm like, that sounds so just like old school.
Quaint,
just like die. It sounds very Oregon Trail to like die of like cholera or like yellow fever or what was it like the
Scarlet Fever,
typhoid, typhoid, all that type of stuff.
I remember my grandpa when he was a young boy on a farm in Michigan, he got scarlet fever and he like kind of did have to be quarantined alone, and so but he remembers it was like Christmas I think, so he was like alone in the attic quarantined and then like listening to the sounds of Christmas below him.
That's pretty crazy.
But scarlet fever is a great name.
I don't know why that drag queen Scarlet Envy didn't go by Scarlet Fever.
I know.
Scarlet Fever is amazing.
The word scarlet, it's like so beautiful.
Well, probably because people would have come out of the woodwork and been like, my great grandma was killed by Scarlet Fever, and that has affected our family for generations, you know?
And it does, and it sucks. And I'm like, guys, I don't mean to but it is quite antiquated, like typhoid. Like every heroine in like Victorian thing is always dying of in Moulin Rouge, she's dying of consumption.
Yes.
Remember, she's like
I thought
coughing
she was
up
dying
blood.
of tuberculosis.
Oh,
Sis.
Are they the same?
No, consumption is the old word for cancer.
Oh, it is?
That's what I thought.
Oh, I had no idea.
They didn't have
I thought
the
they're
word
just always
cancer.
coughing when there's like consumption
I mean,
situations.
I think you can die of cancer in many different ways. So maybe she did have cancer and it was like she was just naturally dying.
but just coughing up blood is the most dramatic, best way to.
But that's
show
a
that you're
symptom
ill.
of tuberculosis. So that's why I always thought she had
Oh,
tuberculosis,
probably.
which was like super rampant in Europe at that point.
That would
So,
make sense.
Yeah.
My friend is married to a girl who has her PhD in infectious diseases.
Whoa.
And I think she works in like the lab at Harvard or something. She's crazy, but she was saying I think she specializes in dysentery, and as part of their senior like thesis or whatever, you don't have to, but they recommend you go and you basically experience dysentery for 3 days in a monitored state. They like give it to you and then bring you back from it so that you as a main researcher can understand like what it actually feels like.
Right.
I don't know that she did it, but that's crazy.
It's fucking crazy. It's so sad. Like, let's just be thankful that the majority of the people who are getting corona or COVID have mild cases and like heal themselves, and it's like a bad flu and they get better, you know?
Yeah.
This could be like the Spanish flu people where it attacked young people because the more like good antibodies that you had in your system, the more it would like flood your system with like fluid. And that's why young people were dying from it, because the old and then like the super young, the babies, they didn't have as many like antibodies in their system. So they didn't get attacked as much.
Yeah.
So this could be the Spanish flu, where the Spanish flu was like way worse than this.
Yeah.
So let's pray that this doesn't get to that level.
Yeah, and we don't want it to be, and we're not trying to make light of that. But it is interesting. It does feel very apocalyptic. I was driving.
It does.
And the signs are like, less is more. Stay home. Like, it seems very dramatic.
It's so crazy. And also, our careers are ruined, right?
And that's the real loss
It
here.
is, okay? It is. Here's the thing. Me and Katy, we are not repped, but we hustle. And do we not every single month for like the past like 4 or 5 years, every single month there's always like some opportunity that
yes.
comes up and stuff like that. So I'm
Yes.
very proud of us for that. And it happens both more often actually individually, but also as groups too. Like
Yeah.
recently we had an opportunity that we could have done together.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud, because to not be repped in the industry and to constantly like get these opportunities, like you do have to be out there hustling, putting stuff out, and it's very hard, but you still get fewer opportunities than people who are repped. And so you are just kind of dependent on favors or hearing from someone or meeting the right person or getting seen by the right person. But we were up for some cool shit and it all got canceled. And 2 stand-up gigs, paid gigs, a college gig and a tour of mine got canceled.
And
because
my
of this.
Amazon Prime taping.
Your Amazon Prime taping did not get canceled.
No, you're
it
right.
got pushed.
You're right. You're totally right.
Yes.
You're right. And now more than ever, which is what I love. I love anytime someone uses that phrase.
Your taping was pushed.
No, that is true. It is like,
It fucking sucks because
I know.
it didn't feel like 2020 is going to be a good year.
Yeah.
You know, no.
she came out of nowhere.
She was like, excuse me.
It is very bizarre, but it is a time to just, I was just saying, I mean, there's literally absolutely nothing that anybody can do. So just like sit at home and just live small. And I mean, we never have an excuse to like just duck out of life, I guess. I mean, because nothing's happening. We can't go anywhere. Can't do anything.
You know what we're going to do. I mean, me and Katy are staying home and we're just like making online content, making podcasts, and both working on pilots and scripts. That's all you can do.
And thrifting.
And yeah.
I mean,
crafting. Especially with like going out to mics and stuff, like you have one thing that's like way at the end of April that you will have time to prepare for. But for me, like there's really nothing stand-up wise that I need to like prepare for anymore because it was all fucking canceled, you know? Which everyone is going through this. It's not just us. Right. It's not just me, but
and a lot of people have a heart. Like I really feel, and I hope that whatever the government's passing is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah,
make it through it.
But shout out to all the creatives out there who are in our exact position, who had cool things coming around the corner, who are trying to make trying to transfer over to like earning their living from this. Like it's very hard to like when you lose stuff. You know what I mean?
It's quite a
shout out to all you guys.
It's very and this is just all unprecedented. It's very odd because we've all seen like the movies, you know, about this kind of stuff. But what does it like really feel like, and what is it, you know? I just keep being like, where are like the tanks with the like hazmat suit people in them?
I know.
And then you know, like in the movies, they're always like crop dusting people with some sort of like probably totally infectious chemical.
Yeah, like they did with the Bracero program.
But it does look, there is nothing scarier. Or why is it, of all the things, like all the imagery in media, there's nothing scarier to me than like a gas mask.
I know.
A hazmat suit and a gas mask.
Which, do you watch The Hot Doctor on YouTube?
No.
Oh my God, we have to watch
Who
him.
is he?
He's so cute. Okay, I think he's this Armenian American doctor.
Is that his handle, the hot doctor?
No, it's like, but everyone just calls him the hot doctor. He's so cute, and he's based on the East Coast, but he's been doing these videos, especially because of the coronavirus, and he was talking about like all the misinformation out there, and then he was also like, why are you idiots wearing gas masks? That's not even something that medical people wear. Like, it's absolutely unnecessary, and you're just doing it for shock value and for scaring value. And he was like, even those like $200 masks that like Gwyneth Paltrow, he's like, those are not gonna work. He's like, you need to look at how this virus is actually passed, you know?
It is so it's so weird. There's a store in Burbank. It's called like the Oddities something museum. It's like it's a very witchy like goth store or whatever, but they sell a lot of, it's like where steampunk goths go to get their bones, you know?
It's where they go to make their bones.
No, they full on have, it's like a lot of like medical experiment weird shit. And I was talking to the woman there, and she was like, oh, the point of this being that they have a lot of like vintage gas masks from World War One, which also shout out to like, I have a great uncle who was blinded by mustard gas in World War One. But those ones look especially terrifying because they're like, it was also a little bit of a different design, and they look like creepy zombie demon masks or whatever. But what was my other point? Oh, just when I went there, the lady was, she was talking. I was like, where do you get these bones? Because they have like skeletons. They have children's rib cages from like the 1800s. And I was like, what the hell? And the lady was like, oh yeah, we have a bone guy. I was like, we all have a bone dealer. But the rules are that you have to, it has
My
to be.
bone dealer's named Miguel. He deals a good bone.
The rules being that it has to be older than 100 years.
Okay.
It has to have for sure been like a medical thing, not like I murdered somebody and saved their skeleton and then murdered him, daddy. And that it has to be like a documented situation. Same for animals, because obviously you can't like rare endangered animals you can't just like have or whatever. But yeah, they had a like toddler's rib cage in a case. Jesus and it was like from 1850. Also, why is it that all ghosts are from the 1800s? All ghostly, because they became obsessed with that. That's another thing. Like Victorian era was very they were all obsessed with like seances and mediums because also everyone was dying all the time.
For sure.
And that's, women were always trying to contact their old dead children and like all this, you know.
Well,
Houdini.
not all ghosts are from the 1800s,
That's
but
true.
I think just definitely back in the Victorian era when seances were, but seances were big post-Victorian because they were big all the way into the 1920s.
True, but
right?
it became, but Victorian is 1850 to something, regardless.
But by 1920s, because I think it's 1850 to 1900.
Maybe.
That's the Victorian era. So anyone who's alive in the early 1900s, from 1900 to 1920, if you were into seances, pretty much anyone you know was going to be from the 1800s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like us. We're like in 2020, but like everyone we know.
We're from the 1900s.
Yeah, everyone we know was born in the 1900s, and especially like older people in our life, like all of our grandparents are from like that time. You know?
The store, we should go there because it is kind of funny to make fun of. But like they sell like everything. They sell a ton of like just old kind of like tin type, anything that looks like a ghost's portrait on the wall. Just like old, like this is Bedelia McPherson, and she's
Bedelia McPherson.
And it's a lot of, it's so weird. It's like children's funeral slippers and like all this, and then all the like medical equipment, which is very creepy, like an old like dentist chair and like anesthesiologist like gross like needles and stuff.
Old medical equipment looks so frightening because they look,
it's like
it
torture.
It looks huge.
Yes, yeah.
And it looks like rusted.
I know.
It's like, what the fuck?
It is. They also sell like a number of x-rays there, like 1900s ones, but then also current ones. Like one was literally, it was like Dan's x-ray, and it was like from
07.
It was like 1985.
Oh, God.
And it was like just, I think it was like a broken bone or something. But I don't, it's very funny that like there's a very specific like goth type of aesthetic or like a steampunk Victorian widow aesthetic, I would call it.
Yeah.
Because I've been very into home decor, I was watching like YouTube channels, and one popped up, and it was like this woman's, she's like full-time goth, and it was like her own decor channel for her like goth home. And so it was very funny. She was like showing her living room, but it was very dark, and she was like, she's Australian too. She's like, guys, sorry.
Oh, God. Do it.
But she was just like,
Go on, then.
She was like, it's very dark in this room. It's very hard to film because, as you know, everything's black. And it was like absorbing all the light. But she had like skulls on her mantle, just like everything. And I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very particular personality type that like enjoys that
It's a
kind
darkness.
of haunted houseness.
Yeah. That's the thing. I love watching stuff about that, but I don't want to be surrounded by that 24/7.
Living in it. Yeah, everything she owned like looked like a coffin or was like.
I don't like that. And I bet she watches like very happy stuff on TV.
Yeah, probably.
Right? She probably watches like Teletubbies.
I don't know.
Also, guys, here in LA, to like add to the quarantine vibe, it's raining a lot.
Yeah, which it never does.
No.
Like, and especially this hard for this long.
Yes.
So it's very like we're all just stuck.
And it's not good for us because, I mean, it's good for the environment. We need the rain, but we want the LA hot weather back because the virus has trouble surviving in hot climate. So it's like, girl.
It does.
Yeah. So it's like, girl, bring back the LA desert coastal hotness.
I didn't know that. It's an ice cream?
It's
like
an ice
it thrives
cream.
in cold and damp.
Yes. That's why the further south you go, there's less cases in Mexico, less cases in Central America being reported.
Yeah.
So take this with a grain of salt, what I'm saying. But a lot of people theorize it's because it is from hotter climates, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Right. It doesn't mean that you can't get infected in those hot climates. It just seems like less cases. It's less prevalent because the virus has trouble living in a hotter climate.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I don't know. All of science. It's also funny how overnight everyone like acts like they've gone to medical school. You know?
I've been
attending.
I've been attending medical school.
Is that a new gay club?
Yes. It's called medical. It's spelled medical SKEWL and then a penis.
I've been going to medical skull.
Medical skull.
That's a blood bar.
No, there's a new bar called urology.
Is
that
there-
would actually be such a great.
That's very funny.
That is such a great bar. Don't steal that, faggots. Don't steal that. No gay person out there, don't steal that from me. That's my bar. Remember how J-Lo had Madres?
No, was that like one of those like early 2000s? Whenever,
Yeah, were they all in
remember when all
restaurants?
celebrities had restaurants?
The Fabulous Life of Jennifer Lopez. Remember that show?
Oh, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yeah.
I loved those.
Yeah, I recently watched the one on YouTube about Lindsay Lohan. It was so stupid.
About like modern? No, her old one.
2000s, like peak Lindsay.
And what was?
It was just like, most teenagers, all they want is a driver's permit. Lindsay, she has 17 Bentleys. It's just like, it's just so stupid.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, everyone's crazy. What are some hot tips to survive the quarantine? Or like, what are you doing with your time?
Oh, I'm working out. I am full on working out. Katie even commented that I look bigger, but svelter at the same time, which is exactly what I was going for.
Yeah.
And I'm working on my pilot. Which I will be sending out to everyone so that you guys can all pretend to read it.
You like send it, you're like, I know you're fucking quarantined, so you have to read this right now.
That is so, all my texts are aggressive. I don't know why you've taken 6 hours to respond to me because we're all quarantined. What are you doing?
So what are you doing? That's good. Anything else? Any fun things?
No, just like eating and, Drag Race.
Oh,
Are you keeping up on Drag Race?
I haven't. I've been so behind on all of it.
This season, honestly, has been really good.
Really?
Really good. One of my favorite seasons so far. Everyone has big personalities. It's full of like stupid shit, controversy. Like, it's great.
Love a controversy.
Unlikable queens. You have to have unlikable queens on there. Likable queens, you know?
I've been slowly catching up on Poes season 2.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which is fun.
Seen it, saw it, lived it.
It's what been it. The fashion is really horrendous in that era.
Really? I liked season 2 was my favorite so far.
Well, it's like it's
More than season
we're in
1.
the harem pant era. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of like it's just not my thing.
I love it.
I love a 90s gay aesthetic when it's like a tight jean, an acid washed tight jean and a mustache.
That's a little later than this era.
Yeah, that's more like mid 90s probably.
Yes.
This is like
94.
80s. I don't care for 80s fashion. I think that's the real issue. I like a power suit, but
yeah, 70s fashion will always be better than 80s fashion.
that is my favorite too.
Yeah. It's just gorgeous.
We should go. I've been wanting to go, not post quarantine. There's a store called The Way We Wore, and
It's the way we wore.
It's a vintage store, which I don't really get vintage, whatever. But this woman, she had a little like reality show on Smithsonian Channel because she only collects like Dior, Chanel, vintage designers. She knows all these. She says, I don't invest in the stock market. I invest in the frock market.
Honestly, with the stock market at bear market right now, she sounds like a fucking genius.
Going in.
Yeah.
But like it's the kind of place where Dita Von Teese goes to get her own wardrobe and a bunch of like stylists. It's also where like costume designers go to this woman's store.
Yeah.
Because she also has her store plus a whole warehouse of like vintage neckerchiefs. And like literally if someone's like, hey, I need
What's a neckerchief?
like a, you know, like boy, like a little, like a scarf you tie around your neck.
Ooh, like in the 60s.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So she is like an encyclopedia of knowledge of all designers and fashion and history. So
Yeah,
I just liked watching her little show. And then sometimes I'll watch her YouTube videos because she'll do like this is like all the Chanel stuff I have, or this is a haul from this, or she's really good at like identifying frauds and auctions and stuff. So
yeah, she's
really cool. But she'll like a costume designer will come and be like, okay, so there's this scene, it's set in like the Hamptons in 1940 or like 1952. This is the family, this is their socioeconomic status. And she'll full on be like, they would be wearing X, Y, and Z. Here's my whole archives, look through and get your inspiration. So she's like it's very historical. It's very fascinating. And so I've always just wanted to go to her store and like try on something like a Dior that's like from the 50s or something.
Honestly, people who invest in designer fashion, I do think that is so smart. And even if you don't make a business like she's made out of it and have this like era knowledge, this encyclopedia knowledge, even to just invest in current day designer stuff, if you ever come into a financial bind like 10 years from now, you will be able to, and if you kept that stuff in good condition, you will be able to resell that. People want that stuff, especially once it reaches vintage level.
It is crazy like how that's such a world that's like so foreign to me. And I'm also not a very like clothes like material but people who love it and like worship it as like art and stuff like that, it's great for them. But she likes it so much that she like she did one YouTube video that it was just on like some of the shoes she owns, and even like she collects like broken off like shoe heels, and she had this whole collection of like vintage shoe heels that have just like lost the shoe, but like they're like, oh, this is like a crazy cool like clear lucite one from the 60s that's like a little pineapple, or this one's like from the 30s, and it has, dude, there was this pair of shoes I could not believe, I think it was like 1925. We would love it. The whole little heel was rhinestoned, and it was like so cool. Like I was like, they had rhinestones like even back then in just like, you know, not day wear, but like evening wear stuff. It's so cool. So she's very creative because she keeps that also so that costume designers can be like, wow, that is a wild fun heel from the 60s. Right. You know, men's as well, or like spats and all sorts of stuff.
The 20s was like flashy fashion.
Ball so hard before it was in between wars.
Exactly. So everyone was like, we're going to party for 10 years.
I loved it because it was an era where men wore furs.
Really?
Men wore, like, a rich man was wearing a full fur coat the way that you might, like, come into my house as a diva in a full fur coat. Yeah, it was very well.
That's amazing. Also, the movie stars at the time, all the men were, like, androgynous, very, like, queer seeming, a lot of makeup on. It wasn't until, like, the Great Depression and then the wars did we start to switch to these, like, uber masculine, not androgynous, not feminine, like, male movie stars. And we didn't really get back to the androgyny until the 60s. It took like the 20s to the 60s. Pretty boys. Yeah, we really didn't get back to that. Because you need the androgyny. You do. And you can't just have like this like masculine dude. As much as we all want to like, you know, fuck those guys. You have to remember that the androgynous, they bring the fun. They bring the sex appeal. The glitz and glam.
I don't know if I've told this story or if I talked about this before. So I have like a great uncle through marriage who
all of your family is like through like European marriages.
It is.
Katy
it's
has
arranged marriage.
German cousins, Greek cousins, Italian cousins. I'm like, I know. Are so European.
I'm very worldly.
No, you truly are European. It's like you're like their Swedish Irish side. Yeah. Like you're all like related. You know how like all the royal families in Europe is you related?
Yeah, because that was the thing about Queen Victoria, right? She was related to every head of every ruler in Europe at the time. I mean, the inbreeding is crazy. But anyways. Yeah. So I had this great uncle who...
That's what I always say at your family functions. The inbreeding is crazy.
He was like a tap dancer and like ballroom because his mother like put it in it. You know, and also it's like, it was the 30s at the time. So like that was like what little what you would do. I don't know. Like,
Okay, so like real, like not real ballroom, like classic waltz ballroom.
Yes. So he like grew up
He
being
wasn't like voguing.
yeah, he wasn't voguing. So he like grew up being a dancer. I'll just say like he wasn't gay. It was just like that's like what they did at the time.
Sure.
So he's like tap dancing in like a nightclub bar review, a cabaret or something,
Yeah.
and an agent comes up to him. I think he was like 18, 19, whatever.
Asian came
An
up to him?
agent.
Oh, okay.
And was like, "Hey kid, I love your star thing. Come to the moving pictures." And this was like in Long Beach, and he was like, "Oh, I would, but I'm shipping out to World War II tomorrow." And the agent was like, "Well, if you ever make it back, give me a ring."
Oh God.
This is in my mind what happened. And he did come back from World War II, and he did give a ring. And then he was a dancer in like musicals in the like late
told me
40s and
about
early
this.
50s. And he was one of like the only straight guys. He would be like, "Oh yeah, they were all gay, like all the other guys." He's like, "But I loved it because I could like clean up on set."
Right.
And he got to do all the lifts with the ladies, so he was always
Yeah.
like touching their little butts and stuff. But so he told this story about
Probably more.
he's like, even an ankle. And he
Yeah, very nice ankles, Darlene.
and they're like, well, aren't you fresh? But so he told me the story of being at a Hollywood party, like this probably would have been in the 50s, and Joan Crawford was there.
Oh yes, I love this story.
And all her little gays were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if we played a prank on Joan?" And so they had one of the guys. Okay, so one of the dancers had a really big member, and it was like very well known.
a cock.
And so this is the story that my great uncle Jack told me, that he went back into the kitchen or whatever, and they had a like silver platter, and he put his dick on a platter, and then he put the little dumbwaiter over it. You know, that's the like tray thing you pull off when you like rich people and butlers do.
Yeah.
So they put it on it. And then he was wearing like a little like butler's apron or whatever. And they went over and they were like, "Joan, we have a special dish for you." And they like opened it. And then she, like a queen, didn't react at all. She said, "Lovely." And she grabbed a fork and a knife and like went to like whatever. And it was such a scandalous.
And then he of course like backed up. She
Yeah,
didn't,
of
like,
course.
dine on his cock.
Yeah.
Wow, how big that cock must have been huge to like put on a fucking platter and like take it out. That's crazy.
But I was like, that's a real queen, is like, you don't respond at all. You just like one up it, you know? So that was a story I heard from the horse's mouth. And then he did want to do one more picture with Fred Astaire. He just always wanted to be in a picture with Fred Astaire, and he was, but then he got cut. And I think it was Paint Your Wagon.
Oh, but he still was on set and worked with him.
Yeah.
Okay, well, at least that.
Yeah.
Even though you got cut, you were in the production.
Yeah.
So that's so cool.
Isn't that such a fun story?
So guys, during this quarantine, tell each other fun stories about your big cocked grandpa's friend. Every grandpa has a friend that had a huge cock, and we always want to hear about it. Or maybe your grandpa himself.
Send in stories.
Yeah. Or maybe a big butt too. We don't know.
Do you
I'm nasty during the quarantine.
like, you got to stay clean but stay a little nasty?
Okay, I am so okay. You know how like clean comics work more?
Yes.
Fuck all them. Okay? Because here's the thing, clean comics usually they can't do humor that's not clean. They usually can't do any type of dirty humor, but they always like have this kind of like, "Oh, well, I guess you need to stoop down to like talking about those things in order to be
level.
funny." But it's like that stuff is actually hard to make funny.
That is true without being vulgar. Or
Exactly,
vulgar,
because people at comedy shows, if you just like go up and you're like cock, like they're not gonna laugh because they're gonna just be like, "Oh, you're just kind of like saying that." You need to like, it's harder to make those subjects funny. So I just shout out to all the dirty ass comics. It is hard to make that stuff funny, especially when you can be looked at as inappropriate. You always have to be funnier than you are inappropriate. But if like you're like look at this napkin holder, isn't this crazy? It's like, okay, girl, like, yeah, you're just talking about shit.
Yeah, I know. I always thought, oh, it must be nice to be an observational comic when you're just like, what's the deal with sugar packets? I mean, they're little, they're packets. How much sugar am I having today?
I know, it's just ridiculous. Also, here's why I know dirty comics are better comics than clean comics most of the time. And I know that this is going to be controversial to any comedians listening, but I don't give a fuck. Dirty comics, every comic that's dirty, we all have a 10-minute clean set because it's always requested.
Yeah.
You always have to have a clean set prepared and on tape so that you can send it, right? Clean comics, do not have a dirty set. Most of them do not have like a set that were because it's not requested of them.
Sure.
They're not required to do that.
So you're verse and they're not.
Well, yeah, I'm saying that dirty comics are usually more comedically versatile because they have to be, because they can't always be dirty. Remember we did that Santa Monica, or no, I did the Santa Monica Pier show where you had to be clean, you know? And, you know, I went up and did it.
Did you, when you auditioned for America's Got Talent the first time? Wasn't it, did you do a dirty joke, but it was like a bunch of 9-year-old little girls in the room with you on your audition?
I
what
did
was
all
it?
clean material.
Okay.
Because I was fit. My group was like 39 to 11-year-old girls with their moms, all terrible singers, terrible singers.
And did you tell them that?
No, there was only one girl.
You were like, Kaylee, you need to quit.
Oh, they were all off key. They were all sharp or flat. I was even like humming in the corner being like, you need to be right here. Why are you right here? You know?
Why are you down there?
Why are you down there?
That's our quote from
Whitney Houston.
That's Whitney
Brandy.
Houston yelling at Brandy during the rehearsals for Cinderella on ABC.
Well, it was pretty like, I get her frustration because in that clip, Whitney was singing so Brandy could match her tone. And that's how a lot of people like match key tones. Like if I sing like, like you should start singing and keep going until you match my tone. But like if I go, and you sing, like why would you be doing that? Why would you not even start at a higher key to try to get, you know, it's like crazy.
What were the little girls like singing? Like what were they auditioning with? I just love, my vision is just, it's just you alone hating all these little like, and they're all in like chintzy little sequins outfits or something.
I don't remember what the fuck they sang,
Yeah.
but
did they do that like kind of little girl, like little kids kind of singing?
oh yeah, all of them.
When it's like,
my God.
the sun'll come out.
Oh yeah, they did that whole like you're never fully dressed without a smile. Like they did all that type of shit.
Because they're all in the 20s.
Yeah, they were like real bad, but except for one was good. But she was of course the only one who played guitar too. So it's like of course you're good because she's like probably in her room all the time playing with that instrument, and so she can constantly be singing and practicing. Everyone else like depends on some like boom box that they brought, you know. No, but I had to go up and I was just like totally thrown by all these kids around me.
So funny.
And I just had like a terrible audition. Like I feel like I was just like everywhere. It wasn't good at all. But then my audition this past year, I had a great audition. Like I got laughs on all my stuff. I felt very good. Did I get a call back? No, but I was super happy to be like, walk out of the audition going, hey, I got laughs on all my stuff. I went in, I just felt so in control. And I was like, oh yeah, well then
Well,
that's
maybe if
fine.
you had prepared a musical number from Annie, you would
I
have been.
would have made it.
Literally cut to like you're on the show, but you're one of the crazy people that they auditioned, and you're like in a full like dressed as you with your beard, but in a full Annie outfit. And you're just like, I just want to make it.
Betcha he's like,
Betcha there's.
I still love Annie.
I know it does.
So
My
great.
heart. I mean, I was the most obnoxious little like 9-year-old girl playing that song nonstop. Like that whole. I had the cassette tape and just like tap dancing in my room and being like, "Oh, it's hard to be an orphan." I don't know why I got like sexy.
It's hard to be an orphan.
Sorry, Daddy Warbucks.
Sorry, Daddy. I didn't mean to do that, Daddy. Should I get down on my knees,
bad.
Daddy?
I used to. I don't know why. I guess I wasn't taking tap class at the time, but I used to tape little poker chips to my shoes.
Oh, God.
Because I was an orphan in the 20s, and I would just tap dance. We had a little like a little deck outside, and I just loved. But they were always kicking off, and I was getting very frustrated.
I had many tap shoes because I took tap.
I was just thinking of you because last time I went to my dance studio, this tap class was there, and tap shoes now are like very different than mine. And mine weren't like the patent leather ones. They're very like sturdy, but I think they're for like hardcore tappers.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking of you, and I was like, didn't we say like when you want to take a dance class, a tap class sometime?
I do, and I still remember because I took so much tap. I do still remember so much. Like I can do time steps. I can do a Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I of course can do like shuffles and flaps, and I can still do all that. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I can do a triple time step still to this day. I can do a triple.
Ew.
Yeah. So
I would like to. I would take one with you.
I would love.
I
to
do
take
still
a
have tap shoes.
But of course, I'm gonna be doing these like steps like these are how you do the steps, but everyone else who's going to show up is going to be like, yeah, we're doing a triple, but we're also doing like full on like modern dance as well. Like, you know what I mean? It's going to be so advanced because you always go into those classes and you think like, oh, beginning tap, hell, fuck no.
Yeah.
It's going to be,
it's a very
advanced.
cool like teacher. He's like he has like like a lot of like swag. Like he's not dressed like old timey. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's like dressed very cool and hip.
Yeah.
And like very just I mean, as fast as he can move his feet, it's like my goodness.
It's gonna be very modern tap, which is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
to tap well is like, it is interesting because if you see like the 1988 Tony Award performance of Patti LuPone doing Anything Goes as Reno Sweeney, which is something I watch once a month.
And you've showed that to me actually on multiple occasions.
She has the best voice for Reno Sweeney. The best voice. I mean, she knocks Sutton Foster way out of the water. Sutton Foster's voice is just garbage comparatively because Sutton Foster just sounds the same all the time. Patti LuPone is amazing, but Sutton has way more tap and dance experience than Patti, because when Sutton's singing, it's like, stop singing, you know? But then when you see Sutton dance, you kind of think the same about Patti. Like Patti's tap was so basic back in that performance.
She was the Mariah, basically, of her.
Oh yeah, like it was literally it was so basic. Like,
She's
it
like,
was
step
literally,
touch, step touch.
Yeah, they like shuffled back, they flapped forward, they did a Cincinnati, and then they like did a pinwheel. I was like, this is Broadway. I don't know what the fuck's happening. Now, Sutton Foster, of course, she's like a dancer.
Full, yeah.
So she like tapped over, but I can't stand her in that role.
Do you remember like who was it? Savion Glover was cool in the 90s.
Yeah.
And Gregory Hines is like
Gregory Hines.
Yeah. I loved because I had tap. I felt very excited when I got tap shoes that were like they have an arch so you can go up on your toes like in full like point basically.
Yeah.
And I was always just doing that just for fun. And they were like, that's not the step, but I was like, I'm still going up on my toes. But yeah, it is very fun. And I actually it was a pretty packed class, and I was like excited that guys, tap is back.
It must have sounded horrendous.
No, because it's very you can hear tapping, but it's like in a contained like room. You know what I mean?
You know not to tap on certain surfaces, right?
I've gotten that speech from my stepdad many times.
No, meaning it's more about your body.
Right. Don't do cement, guys. You're gonna mess up your joints.
Yeah, because though you need something like wood that has shock absorption. If you don't, your knees after like a long tap they're gonna feel really weird, and it fucks you with your knees.
I did have a little tapping board in my room.
Yes,
it was like a little like 4x4 because my stepdad. I remember like we moved into a new house and had hardwood floors, and I was like, well, I'll be tapping on these, and he was like, don't fucking think of it, you know.
No.
So I had my little tap board in my closet, and I would bring it out, and then I'd just be like, and then my mom would be like, time for dinner, and I'd be like, click, 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 click. Did I tap? Oh, in my old apartment we tapped on the actual
we did
floor.
tap on our web
but it was
series.
laminate.
And I was soft shoe tapping. You were actually tapping. But honestly, for a soft shoe, that sounded pretty good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, episode 1, Living with Jonathan and Katy. If you haven't seen it, we learned to dance.
We tap.
Yeah. We actually tap battle.
Oh, we both do pullbacks in that.
Oh, yeah.
We both did full on pullbacks.
So come for us.
I love how we showed up and we're like, we already know how to do pullbacks.
Yeah. I did love it though. What else is fun?
I think that's it.
I think guys, it's a short one. It's a hot one.
Bye, guys. We'll be dropping more episodes and more online content later in the month because we're all quarantined like little animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shout out to the CDC in the meantime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck
bye.
Trump. Bye.
Living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy.